In Denmark, a cider is considered by the consumers a substitute to sodas, while in Poland, where you live, cider would be seen more as a substitute to fruit flavored beer
For
because that is how the consumers
definitely,
perceive it,
that's
right?
correct.
So the business implication of this insight would be that when you are looking in the market of Denmark, ideally, where should you place the your ciders? Next to the soda aisle, while in Poland, it should be ideally placed next to the fruit flavored beer. So that is how the shopper behavior impacts the business decisions.
Hello, everyone. We're here today with Richa Dubey. Richa has 2 decades of expertise in insights and analytics. She brings a wealth of experience from market research agencies such as Nielsen or Kantar, as well as leadership roles at Unilever or Carlsberg. Her specialized areas include innovations, social media analysis, and a straightforward commitment to customer centricity. Furthermore, she has an extensive experience working across local, regional, and global roles, providing comprehensive perspective on market dynamics. Hello, Richa. How are you today?
I'm doing good, and thanks, Adam, for the lovely introduction. And a bigger thanks to you for taking this initiative to talk about market research industry because it is an industry which you do not hear or see more about on the net. So thanks for that initiative.
Absolutely, our pleasure. So, Richa, can you tell us a bit more about the areas of market research application in the real world?
Yeah, so see, market research is typically your primary research and secondary research. A primary research is one where you go out to consumers specifically to ask business questions, whereas secondary research is already existing data which you mine to find solutions to your business questions. Now, if I have to talk about the MR application, that is vast. It can be applied across industries and sectors. And if I have to give you an example about product development, like let's take an example about a company which wants to introduce a product in the market. What will they try to first understand? That okay, what are the markets with potential? Market researchers use there. If you then further look at it, what should be the product? How should the product be? What should be its pricing? Which consumer segment they need to look at? So all these questions can be answered through market research. In a short while, if I have to talk about market research, it is everything where your consumer is involved, the consumer behavior is involved, or any kind of market information if you are trying to seek, market research can provide an answers to it. So for instance, when you talk about your shoppers, uh, you want to understand whether my category is a impulse category or a planned category. Market research can help you answer those kind of questions, and then you see the application for it. For instance, if you look at confectionery as a category, it is a impulse category. And how do we know it? Through the consumer piece of work that we do, we understand, oh, this is a category which is impulse. And then with those insights, you try to apply it in a business environment. So you would have seen when you go shopping in a retail outlet, typically confectionery is kept very close to the cash counter,
That's
and
right.
that is because it's a impulse category. Yeah. So that I would say is the application of MR across industries, across sector, wherever consumer insights are required.
Interesting. What about the like we work in the market research, like we provide the tools for market research industry. What about when to decide when to do qualitative type of research, when to do qualitative? Where would you draw the line? Where should we choose different setup? Can you
Again,
tell us a
very,
bit
very
more?
nice question and very relevant for beginners in the industry because for us, it just we know when to apply qualquant. But if I have to start with a differentiation between qualitative as anything which is wherein we are trying to find in-depth information. Yeah. So what are the
Okay.
underlying thoughts, opinions, on which the consumer is making certain behavior? So it is much more richer, much more deeper. Yeah, and the kind of tools or the techniques for which I applied therefore in qualitative, because it is more in depth, it would be things like depth interview, focus group discussions, yeah, ethnography wherein you are with the consumer day in day out. Yeah, so techniques like those are applied because it's more deeper underlying ideas,
Hmm.
whereas quantitative research is more number based. Anything to do with numbers is more the nature of that is more quantitative, more numeric, more statistics based. So you find pattern, but you find pattern within the data. So you have the data and you then try to find patterns into that. So that is the basic, and therefore the methodologies that we adopt for quantitative research would be surveys and statistical tools. So those would be the methods. Let me simplify it with an example, and I think you can answer this. So, for example, there's a company which is trying to understand why teenagers are not buying their product. Why? So,
Then
which
probably
one do
qual,
you
right?
think? Yeah, absolutely, bang on. Yeah, because a call
Okay.
is essentially telling you why and
hmm
how of it,
hmm
whereas quant is more like what is it and how much, so quantity.
hmm
So that's another way of looking at, and or if I give you
Very
an example.
interesting. I
Yeah,
like the
if I give you
division
an
you just
example,
made.
like, okay, there are two products, and the marketer or the company has to decide which one product to go ahead with, or one pack design to go ahead with. How would they decide?
I'm sorry, I had some
Call or quant?
interruption with the audio, but as long as I understood, well, probably it would be something in between qual and quant, because first of all, you need to understand how people are kind of like perceiving the product itself, but then you would like to learn whether it happens at scale. I don't know. You tell me
Bang on.
about that.
Exactly, exactly. So, because if you have to take a call between two options or anything which has to be a big decision, at the end of the day, it will have to be numbers based, right? You
hmm
have to
Yeah.
see what
hmm
majority is liking. So when it is about making decisions, the quant plays a bigger role. When it is about understanding, deep diving into people's behavior, why they are doing things, then qualitative is there. But I think you make a good point that there are projects where we will typically do a qualitative to first understand and then quantify. So if you said, okay, people are liking the product for these 5 reasons, then you would like to quantify which is the biggest
hmm
reason. So
Yep.
yeah, so
Yep.
it's a combination.
Makes sense. And which one you prefer to run? Which is you prefer qualitative or quantitative?
See, I'm a quant
Uh,
researcher, but at the same time, see, it totally depends on the business objective.
mhm,
So there is no right or wrong answer. It is
mhm,
about what is the business objective, and therefore, I mean, nowadays it's not even seen as call and quant. It is seen as a business solution. So there's a problem, and we need to find a solution. And to that effect, what do? We could apply some qualitative. We could do some combination kind of a thing. We could only use quant. So it totally depends on the business objective.
Okay, I see. Uh, okay, that was an interesting one. And what about the role of technology in both of them? So probably the qual is more, it's like less dependent on the tech because probably these are focus groups, these are some individual interviews where you need to be face on face. But also I can imagine like you can use some online tools for doing that. What about the technology within both of them? If you can tell us a bit more.
Yeah. I think again pretty interesting, because when you were saying that technology in call, and I'm just thinking the major kind of technology advancements have been actually in call. So I'll come to it, but if I see in my 2 decades how things have evolved, it's
hmm
interesting that how technology has made it much easier. Like, I remember when we started off, most of the interviews used to be a paper interview, right?
hmm
There would be a data acquisition team, field team, which will go to different consumers, and then they will check everything. So that was more a pen and paper interview. Then
hmm
you had something called CAPI, like, so the field person will have a laptop or a tablet, and they will
hmm
record the responses. So everything is
hmm
again getting digitalized. And now I think for most of the places, we don't even do CAPI, we do online interviews. So
hmm
from pen and paper, it has now come to most of the interviews being online. And then you also have platforms which allow you to do DIY research. When I say DIY, you do it yourself. It would be you can create the questionnaire, you can reach out to people, and you also get the analytics in the platform. So those kind of things are happening
hmm
technology wise. Then further, if I have to talk about big changes in technology, it would be the in the moment real time
hmm
research. So what
hmm
happens there is, earlier say you are a tea company and you want to check your tea bags. How would you check it? You would first give a sample to the consumers. The field guy would go first, then the respondent would use it for a week, and then again there's a post visit. So pre and a post visit, there would be 2 visits. Now all that time has been cut down, because what you're essentially doing is, the moment you give the product, uh, the consumers, they can make videos of how they are preparing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are these online communities which can be created, so to there's a constant interaction with them, what
Right.
work, what not work. So that has become very handy, real time, the online communities. That is a big change. Another one which I actually used, and again is in the qualitative space, um, and really good, because, and I have used it personally and I found it very time and cost effective. What happens is, there are platforms which allow you to have video interviews
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world. So for example, I want to do a research in Canada. Now
Mm-hmm.
in a normal scenario, a qualitative research, a focus group discussion, or a depth interview, I will have to imagine the cost of conducting the whole interview in that market.
Yeah.
Now I can do it sitting here in Denmark. What happens is, there are platforms which allow respondents to record information on their own in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, I will have to think about the translation and everything. Okay, it has to be in French and all, but all that is taken care of. So the output of such places is, you get video snippets, or highlight reels, and
Mm-hmm.
which is so nice, because then you can have that qualitative piece, uh, anyone anywhere done in the world. I see you
That's
have some questions here.
No, no, that's really interesting. Like I know I'm familiar with some of the tools that allow you doing live transcriptions, marking, highlighting, and so on. And I think they're very useful things for running, especially those qualitative type of research. For sure, there are some set of tools for running online quantitative research. There's lots of tools for heat mapping, tracking mouse, side tracking, and so on. I think worth mentioning also as one of the revolution in technology in the last years is the mobility of eye tracking devices, like for instance glasses for shopper
Yeah.
research. Uh, it was not available, I don't know, a decade ago or 2 decades ago for sure. So right now you can get a lot of insights from people actually walking in stores to check what they were paying attention to. Also, I represent a full webcam-based eye tracking, so you can run eye tracking studies at scale as well. So I'm like a live living example that the technology is changing, and I feel good that you as a person who is using such set of tools, different tools, is kind of like taking advantage of it by running some qualitative interviews all over the world by sitting in one place. That's amazing. Like that makes the road to results much faster and much simple. Uh,
Yeah. No, yeah, I
and what
think
about?
you
Mhm,
touched upon a very good area about shopper research, because another
mhm,
area where I see a lot of change has happened in the whole shopper research, from eye tracking to video and image analytics. You name
mhm,
it. Then you can also create virtual shops, virtual retail shops.
mhm. Yep.
Not only that, you can, like, if you have a fine dining area, you can also virtually create that. So that is again, because imagine the kind of effort, if you were to do it at the location, kind of logistics arrangement. And the whole thing about eye tracking is really good, because not only does it allow you for tracking, eye tracking, but the kind of other kind of things that you get, like heat maps. So, and
Mhm,
they are really helpful. Heat maps or the gaze plots, how they help is, for example, if we typically, when we are doing an innovation, we show the consumers a concept. So what the heat
mhm,
map will tell you, the areas of interest where the consumer has looked at. So you know what they are liking about it. Similarly, if you're looking at packaging, that is again, the gaze plot is so important, because it tells you the visual hierarchy. Like, okay, which was the
mhm,
first point? So, again, be it from a communication standpoint, be it from a
mhm,
packaging standpoint, idea standpoint, all these technologies, I think they are aiding the
mhm.
insights professional big time, cost effective,
Mhm,
time effective. So yeah, those are some of the things. And then
mhm,
I don't know whether I've mentioned about whole, when you're talking about call. Um, Another thing that we are finding now happening is these online communities. So the community is already there, and therefore what it allows us to do is a longitudinal research. So imagine every month you can go to the same set of people and keep on asking the questions
Hmm.
because they are a part of the online community. And
Yes.
like the
Yes.
categories that I have worked in, I've noticed that maybe when it's a regular beer, when people are buying a regular beer, they will just pick it up.
Hmm.
They won't read through anything. But if they're buying a
Okay.
craft beer, then they will get
Uh-huh.
into, so it's again dependent on the category, how much time you spent on it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That makes sense. And actually that brings me to another question, which is a very, very hot topic these days about AI in market research. So having said that, it's very important what type of beer you're purchasing, whether it's a regular or some craft beer and so on. How can AI support you with these with the data, with collecting the data to run insights on, uh, based on uh, based on its own engines? So can it categorize? What about the being human in, like, what about the human part in human
Hmm.
research? What's your take on that?
Yeah. See, I know like AI is a buzzword and everybody is talking about it. But to be honest, Insights community has been using analytics for a long time. And to me, AI is just a tool for helping us with it. So earlier also we were using statistical tools.
Mhm.
So when you do think like a segmentation, you still used to use k-means, clustering and all. But now with the AI, it has become much faster, much simpler. So and then again, it's not like you
Mhm.
can apply AI everywhere. At times, based on the data, data quality,
Mhm.
many other parameters, you have to also apply analytical tools, which may not be AI tools simply. If I have to think about the application of AI, some things where I have personally used AI extensively is social media analytics.
Mhm.
Like imagine the kind of, there are billions of data points on the internet. If you were to
Mhm.
do a social media analytics, manually it's
Mhm.
not possible to do. Then AI comes really handy because you are dealing with big data, and
Mhm.
there's so much of information on the social media platform. The kind of AI techniques you can apply is NLP, natural language processing, which helps you with the classification, which helps you with the text mining. Yeah, so
Mhm.
then you have neural or the deep learning or the neural networks, which can further theme the data, like which are the themes
Mhm.
which are being talked about. There's everything that you do within the analytics now you can do with the social media data as well. So that is a big area where I see the AI application part of it in the social media
Mhm.
analytics. Another place where I find, and I'm talking now
So
more specifically, sorry, go on.
what I wanted to ask you is about that you mentioned the AI can support you with the analysis, with the insights. And what about the data collecting? Maybe not collecting, but gathering the data. Can the AI be, what's the word? Uh, Synthetic. Can you run analysis on synthetic data? Uh, so, for instance, we do eye tracking, and we do
Yeah,
provide eye tracking data from collecting
yeah, yeah,
eye
yeah.
data from blue humans. There are some tools that provide heat maps based on artificial intelligence, and for sure they somehow correlate with the real eye tracking. But isn't it risky, or is it something that will move forward? Like attached to the thing you said, that different products gain the desired different attention, just like different type of beer will be read in a different way. What do you think about it?
No, I think what you're saying is very interesting, and I was actually about to touch upon this part of AI. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
See, one has to be very mindful when to apply AI, when not to. As I said, it depends on the quality of
Mm-hmm.
data. Can you run? What is the kind of model fitment? So you have to look at a lot of things before even putting AI into it. But another area which is about the eye tracking data. So there's a division or a field of AI which is called computer vision, and what it does is
Mm-hmm.
it aids in any kind of visual or image analytics. It helps with that. So if I and so that is a that's the technology part of it, right? So there's a technology. It will be
Mm-hmm.
applicable to different industries in a different way. The way I see it being applied for market research uh, could be for, say, shopper research, right? Imagine you have eye tracking data for multiple studies. You can apply AI there to generate insights. Or you have CCTV footage.
Mm-hmm.
from your retail outlets. You can actually use that CCTV footage. Or, I mean, a very
Right.
simple example would be on Twitter. Twitter, everybody is posting image and videos. You can do this whole thing, image and video analytics for those kind of images. So there is this technology available. One has to figure out how you can apply to your industry, right? So that I feel we could definitely, those are some of the areas. But still, I'll tell you the challenge which comes across for whenever we try to apply AI is the data quality itself. Because right now, most of either the data has to be really organized well in a certain way. That is the data cleaning thing, is the maximum time goes into that part. But otherwise, once you set in place,
Okay.
but I think it's just a matter of time, because it's a technology which is developing fast. So the more time passes, the better it goes. But yeah, image video analytics, another place, if I have to talk about where AI I see
Yes.
being
Yes.
played a big role, is the qualitative part. There are now platforms, AI platforms, which allow for qualitative research. So you just have to go there, and they allow you to conduct focus groups, depth interviews, the transcription part of it. Again, like what used to happen
Okay.
earlier was there will be a moderator, there would be a transcript, and then again it has to be worked upon. AI can help big time there with the transcription. I mean, even if you're doing offline research, when there are these like transcripts which somebody is decoding, AI can be, all these technologies are there, but they are still improving. Like you do not get it 100% right. The clustering may have some challenges. Having said that, it is better than somebody spending 10 days doing that kind of a transcript decoding. So there are platforms which allow for qualitative research. Then AI is also being used big time for innovation, for foresights. So a lot of foresights or the trends, emerging trends, one can find through using AI on social media or on different platforms. If there's more, if there's text information, video information, all these different forms of data, forms of information can be captured, and you can drive insights or figure out which are the trends. Now, once you understand which are the trends, you can use generative AI to create concepts. Yeah, so once you understand what are the emerging trends, one can also use generative AI to create concepts, relevant concepts for consumers. Not only that, if you see it, AI usage for communication, and for packaging researchers, we talked about when we were talking about this whole heat maps, gaze plots, facial coding. So you can use both visual and conversational AI, again, for communication, packaging, concept testing. For all these things, you can use AI. Another area where I am personally using AI is for customer analytics. So, which means, suppose there's a bank and they want to know what is the customer lifetime value for their database, right? So you can again apply AI there to understand which consumers have what kind of life value for the company, what is the cost of acquisition, cost of retention, and how that could that be improved. Another big one could be is through AI, based on the data, if there is robust data, one can start giving recommendation engines. So what these recommendation engines will do is can tell them, okay, which product should they be cross-selling or upselling to their consumers. So that is another application, big time useful for telecom companies, banking sector, from an AI perspective. Yeah. So those are
Yeah,
some
that
of the things which came to my mind. Yeah.
absolutely makes a lot of sense. Uh, what about the like in the real world? Are you like how it happens? Those market research companies do they have some I don't know collaborations with technology providers to maintain their research at the highest level? Does it happen in the real world? As for example, we did recently a collaboration project with a company called Neurons, and we were kind of like they were trying to understand what was the attention distribution on websites for advertisements placement. So that was like a cooperation happened here between technology provider and actual market research company. So does it happen often? Do you have any
See, I think you bring across a
points on it?
very valid point in for today's setup, today's market research setup, because if you see what is happening in the industry is we are the experts for insights, but the technology experts are sitting in different places, right? And they are experts in their own field. Like you have a good grasp on whole thing about eye tracking, you are specializing in that. Somebody else may be just specializing on creating dashboards, business intelligence. So when you are talking about smaller research organizations, I think the way they have to go about it is through collaboration. That is the way for it, because investing that kind of resources and effort into building everything may not be the best solution for them. So definitely I see a lot of potential in these collaborations. I also have these kind of collaborations with different technology partners, and also I think it becomes very important for smaller organizations because you do not have continuous stream of business for a specific thing. So do you therefore set up the whole thing, or you go to the expert for the technology part, and that is much I would say that's much cost effective, and also they are the experts in that field. So rather than creating experts for everything internally,
Yeah.
you now have the option of collaborating with technology firms.
I like what you said about, like, at the very beginning, you said that the insights, like the market research is all about the data and the insights based on the data. So very often, like, there are companies who are providing data, but there are also companies who are rather focused on providing insights based on the data. So probably that's the link where the collaboration, when the magic can happen, like for instance, the one I mentioned. Okay.
Yeah, very interesting, because and I think that's a gap right now in the market. There's a big gap between organizations who have the data, everything when it comes to the data, and the organization which are in the business of insights. So in the absence of that, what happens is companies are given data, but there is nobody to interpret that data. So I think the collaboration is a good idea for most of the companies.
Interesting. Nice. Changing a topic a little bit, stepping away from the technology. What about the changes in consumer behavior? Perhaps their media consumption is being changed, some shopping behaviors. Do you have any insights based on your data on
Okay.
this on this
Um,
topic?
so, I mean, you bring across good points. I'll just ask you a simple question now. When you go to a restaurant, you are in a new city. How do you go about going to a restaurant? I think the first
Google
thing you will
Maps,
do is find
obviously.
reviews for it. Yes. Yeah, you'll find Google Maps will take you there, but you'll find, okay, what are the reviews about it? So our
Absolutely.
shopping behavior has completely changed. So earlier, when the person had to figure out whether the activation is working or not working, it was only the retail outlet where, and in certain outlets they have done, and now whether the activation is working. But the shopper behavior has completely changed. I mean, e-commerce, so there are multiple formats which are playing a role. So from a shopper standpoint, it's not only like one place where you are going to shopping. You are getting the same or better offers online. So you have to take into consideration the holistic viewpoint. So the shopper behavior is changed. A big change has also happened in our media pattern. Like earlier, it was so easy to track media habits, and therefore the companies could play the ads accordingly. Now it is so difficult because now you have multiple screens. So nobody, and then simultaneously you would
Right.
be
Multiple
watching two
devices.
screens. Yeah, you are multiple. You're watching something on the television, but you are also having your mobile in hand. So if there's an ad coming from a company standpoint, yeah, the television was on, the ad was seen, but actually it wasn't seen because you were busy on another screen. So our media habits have changed. I mean, I also feel, and it's therefore it has become all the more important to understand the consumer behavior, because it's evolving so fast that if we do not track it, if we do not try to understand it, the amount of money that the companies will spend, it will spill over into activities which are not helpful for them. uh,
Converting, right?
I'll give you an example. And it can also change by markets, because we were talking about shopper behavior.
Mhm.
So I was, in my previous role, I was working in this category of beer, ciders, and it was very interesting. I was in a global role, so I had to look into different markets. Um, in Denmark, a cider is a substitute, is seen by consumers as a substitute to sodas, right? Whereas
Okay.
you're from Poland, right? In Poland,
Yes,
the
yes.
same product.
It's not like that. It's a substitute for a beer.
Yes, it's a fruit flavored beer. So what does it mean? So what
Mm.
it means is, in the consumer mind, the substitution. So when you go to a shop in Denmark, ideally the placement should be not next to a beer aisle, but next to the sodas.
Mhm.
Whereas in
Right.
Poland, it should be next to the fruit beer, to the beer category. So the behavior is also dependent on the market, on the category. So there's so many elements to it, and therefore I feel it's very important for companies nowadays, when you have so much of heterogeneity, to understand the consumer. I mean, earlier days it was still homogeneous. Now all the
Mhm.
more reason to be closer to the consumer, closer to what is happening on ground.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. I really like the example with the with the soda and the cider. Like it really
But have you
it's
observed that in
powerful.
Poland?
Like it's no, that's pretty obvious. That for me that was obvious that it's just a different type of a beer. So I'm
Yeah,
quite surprised. And probably there's so many examples like this for many different categories. Like
yeah.
ignoring the fact that something can be different in a different region is might be risky. uh, very interesting. Richa, thanks for all the informations and the entire interview. I just have one last topic. As I said at the very beginning, we do have a variety of different people who will see this, starting from students, wannabe market researchers, to market research companies, perhaps universities, and so on. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more, or maybe you have some advices to new researchers in general. What would be if you, yeah, what would be your your take on that?
No, sure, sure. I mean, I think it's my pleasure to, if I could be of help to anyone. I would say, for people who are looking forward to a career in the insights industry, insights analytics,
Mhm.
figure out where your interest lies. Again, as we spoke about, a qualitative researcher may require different skill set versus a quantitative. So if you are the kind of person who likes to find patterns in data, and then you're more fit for a quant one. If you are more into understanding in-depth behavior and all, it could be qualitative, or it could be also mixed. So just figure out what exactly do you like. Better to just do an internship with a company that will give you an overview. Another thing I would always recommend newcomers is to be a sponge. And
Mm.
because what happens is, when you, if I have to talk about my experience, when you join companies, when you go from, say, one is the agency and one you have the companies where you have the insights role. When you're in a company, you are seen as a specialist, and you should come across as one, right? So you are the one who is the guardian of consumer voice. You are the one who has to tell that market information to the company. So everybody is looking up to you for that information. So be that expert. And how do you be that expert? By having close interactions, look at the data, so that you're on top of things. Yeah, so be the consumer and the market expert, because that is the role you are expected to deliver on. That is point number one. Second is, I feel, with the categories blurring, there's so much of blurring between the categories. It's very important that youngsters, when they come to the industry, they just do not confine themselves to that specific category. Look across the wider category. Look across other categories for learning, which can be then applicable. You can just apply it for your own category. So that is the second one. Third is, and more importantly, make use of these new technology advances. I mean, they are there for a reason, right? Start making use of technology. It will help you save cost. It will help you reduce timelines, and more importantly, while you're using technology, do not lose the consumer pulse. So it has to be a fine balance between use of technology, but also human centricity. So do not stop talking to
Mhm.
consumers, That's the core of it. But what technology is doing is helping you understanding it, making it easier for you. So a combination of
Mhm.
technology and human centricity. So yeah, those two three things I would say.
Thanks. I really like what you're at the very beginning. We said a bit about the customer centricity, and I feel like I really know what you meant by that at the very end. Like that's in the heart of your role, of every role of a market research should be that there is someone in the center, and you're kind of like standing there to bring voice to the crowd of what they like, what they dislike, and it's just done by putting this customer, this human, in the very center of the research. Very, very cool. Very nice approach. Richa, thanks so much for talking, for telling us all those insights from the market research world. That's it for today. So thanks again. And if you have any questions to myself or Richa, then probably you will be able to find some information around this interview. So have a good day. Have a good rest of the day to all of you. Bye bye.
Bye, and thanks, Adam. Bye bye.